Welcome to the Wrestling Philosophy Show, where we discuss coaching perspectives, beliefs, and techniques. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. All right, here we are. Coach Josh Malave, Mount Union. Where are you joining us at today?
Just on campus. So just in my office, here on campus, and beautiful day, and excited to talk with you.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. Real quick, are you going on year 5 at Mount Union? Give us a little rundown how your coaching history, your background, quick snapshot.
Yeah. So this is my 5th year as the head coach at Mount. So I was a All-American here in 12 and a 2-time academic All-American here. So I'm an alum and very familiar with the school. I also teach here on a rotating basis. So my background is education and history. And so I work within licensure and, some tech assessment and some different things, trying to get kids ready for the classroom. And then I also do some like FYS, kind of like public speaking, writing type stuff whenever the school needs me to. But yeah, year 5, took over, kind of culture shock, with the program, trying to get everything overhauled to compete at a national level. And, we finished that year about middle of the pack, 46th in the nation, had one national qualifier. And, he was also the OAC Wrestler of the Year that year. And then the next year we just kind of exploded. We jumped. We went from 46th to 10th, and then we brought Gerard in, and he was a national champ for us. And both him and Nick Mancini made the national semis, and we had 2 freshmen qualify, and one was on the doorstep of being a freshman All-American. And then in year 3, we jumped again. We went from 10th to 5th. We had 3 in the finals, and we really could have won all 3 of those matches. We had 4 All-Americans that year. Jordan, Gerard's brother, won it that year. And even though Gerard didn't win it, he still placed at the Midlands. So he was the only D3 placer at the Midlands that year. And then last year, we had 5 NWCA All-Americans. So with the cancellation of the national tournament, they still awarded, those guys based on seed and stuff like that, All-American status. So, yeah, I mean, it's been fun.
Cool. No, yeah. I know you started at the high school level.
Yep.
Northeast Ohio, then you went down to Union Pines. I guess take what you learned at the high school level. Obviously, it's a little different, but there's anything you took away from those experiences that kind of shaped where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, so Chris the Vondruska family in general, and so their father Don, who's a mentor and coach to me, just passed away recently. But Chris was huge in my development when he brought me down, and I really kind of call it coaching school, to be honest with you. So realizing that wrestling is, and being a competitor is one thing, but being able to help mold and shape kids and figure out their trajectory and figure out your part in that, and how you can get kids to perform at the highest level. So even though I was down there with him for really about 11 months, it was just incredible. I mean, we Super 32, all the different qualifiers, the youth training. I mean, pretty much, I hit every single level with him and spent as much time as I possibly could learning from him. So, I mean, it was coaching school all the way around. So I owe a lot to Chris, and I always tell him that too. And I bring him up, here. Sometimes he'll come into my classes when I'm teaching, and then he'll spend some time with my guys, at practice and stuff like that. So he's been an invaluable resource, for me, in getting my career going.
Yeah, Chris is a great guy. He, go way back when he still does the camps, but take guys up there, and 10, 12 years ago, he'd bring some top guys in. He does a great job. Even when he was at Union Pines, he'd still run that camp and bring his guys up. It was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
What do you see the difference between North Carolina, right? That's North Carolina, correct?
Yep.
What's the difference between North Carolina and Ohio wrestling that you see? You've been at that brief stint.
Yeah, I mean, well, specifically like Northeast Ohio. I mean, probably Ohio in general, but Northeast Ohio is probably one of the top 5, right. 10, it's one of the top wrestling areas, in the entire country. And, just talent, just all over the place. And I guess the biggest difference is the depth. North Carolina has some really talented guys down there. I think some of it is just the depth of talent, and I think that plays an impact on the top level guys too. So for instance, our best are constantly, think of, Taylor, Stieber, through their career, hitting at different points in time,
Right.
getting guys that end up being, some of the best in the country. They're sharpening each other over and over again. So another big difference down there is there's just a huge focus on like number of matches. They wrestle so many matches down there, where those guys will graduate, with 200, plus wins. And I guess some of that started to trickle up, here a little bit, but, the majority of your best guys, I don't know if they're wrestling that much up here because shelf life, just trying to,
quality over quantity.
right. And just the overall depth of the field. But that's what I would say depth is probably the biggest difference.
Okay,
So.
cool. No, that makes sense. I hear that a lot, with conversations with other coaches across the state. With Coach Von Druska, obviously you met him, through Lutheran West. Talk a little bit about Coach Ressler. I know he's very, very involved coach, really driving the girls program there. Just, talk about that, him and what he's doing for the girls program in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, no, Dave is, and Coach Ressler's been an amazing mentor to me. And, I really, I don't think too many people realize, how many different committees and groups and different things that he's attached to. And really, as a student athlete, I didn't know.
Right.
I mean, when I was competing for him, I really didn't know just kind of all the different pieces and parts that he had a hand in. And so it's really impressive, what he's done with women's wrestling. It's really impressive what he's done with youth wrestling and getting kids scholarships and things like that. So, and then in addition to what he does with his normal students with, national history competitions and, state and, all sorts of different local projects and things like that. He's always on the go, always doing something, but he's done an amazing job getting, the women's wrestling program going at West and starting that snowball, and helping it grow throughout the state. And, for me, I've been blessed to have him, as a mentor on the wrestling side, on the teaching side, on the life side. And so, just like Chris, just a real high character person, and then DJ too, in that mix, Chris's brother and Don's son, DJ Von Druska, just very, blessed to have high character people around me. So he's doing, he's a workaholic, those guys are always working, and not many people know it, in addition to that, he cleans the school. He's just
Wow.
He's
Coach Ressler's a golf coach too, right? Is
it golf coach. Golf coach,
Geez.
I mean, he the guy just, definition of work ethic,
That's
just
awesome.
always working. So, and a great father too.
Yeah. There's any discussions about, girls program at Mount Union? I know, a lot of the smaller schools, and I guess talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been for the last. I just actually had my biweekly meeting with my AD just prior to this at 9, and him and we were talking about women's wrestling again yesterday. So, he's in. So Mike Parnell is our interim AD right now, and he just took over for Larry Karras. But we've been in discussions. These past couple of years, I hosted a women's event alongside our OAC quad, and I've been really trying to get it going. I think women's wrestling is not just important from the standpoint of creating opportunity and equality, but I think it's equally important for stabilizing men's wrestling. So making sure that, men's programs don't go anywhere. And I think we have the facilities. I think we have the school, culture, that's built for it. I think we have a great location, and so we've met some resistance from, like regional competitors and things like that. And I think it's just educating our administrators on really what the needs are, so, that we don't need to wrestle like a huge dual meet schedule, and, that there's lots of tournament opportunities, and we can tier a schedule and scaffold it up to over time, and to where it would look similar to a men's schedule. But I think it's important. I've been fighting for it, and hopefully I get the green light on it here soon.
Right.
And so I can start recruiting, young women to our institution.
Right. So with that recruiting, a lot of people know there's a lot of small schools across Ohio, and then let's say you get that green light, for wrestling or I guess, what do you say, what makes Mount Union different? A lot of people know it's football heavy school, but what kind of support do you have, and what do you say to, recruit and get those kids to campus?
Yeah. I mean, what people don't, I guess what makes Mount Union unique is probably the national average for student athlete population is probably around 25%. We're probably close to a little over 40% student athletes. So
Wow.
the majority of kids that are, we have about 2,200 undergrad, about 2,700, 2,800 if you include our graduate programs. But the majority of our kids on campus are athletes. So,
That's crazy.
so for me, when I was going to school here, I was next to, I was lifting next to Cecil Shorts and Nate Kamick and, guys that, went and played in the NFL or the Euro League or, I'm in class with Scott Panchik, who's, one of the top 5 guys in the CrossFit games. And, it's like
Wow.
you're surrounded by guys that, are great athletes and that want to compete at the highest level that they can. And I think some of the knock of Division III athletics in Ohio, and I don't mean this as a slight to our Ohio high school coaches, is I think they look at it as not competitive. And if you look at it nationally, they're wrong. When in a couple of years ago, BW was hosting the national tournament in Cleveland. And one of the conversations that Coach Gibbs and I had was the fact that it really, having the Ohio State tournament the same weekend was just such a detriment because we wanted people to come and see the level, how good these guys are. And so, but, what makes Mountain Union unique? It's our athletics culture. Not that it takes precedent over academics. It doesn't, athletics is the vehicle, for success. We have great academic programs here too. But that is our niche, and we have a lot of first generation, college students, that are trying to make their way and trying to, change the socioeconomic status of their family. And it's a special place. We have a great campus, great facilities, great support. And I know I'm kind of talking on and on, but from the wrestling side, not many people realize that we're the second largest donor group on campus. So during my last 4 years here, we've brought in, over 100K,
How do you do that?
Alumni direct donations, is a huge piece. So we've had guys like Sean Brown, we've had, and I'm not going to say their specific amounts that they donate, Sean Brown and, Mike Alfredo and, Rob Vetterall. And we've had just a Steve Harder. We've just had a slew of people that have just donated to our program, and it's allowed us to expand our operating budget, about 20 to 25,000 each year.
Wow.
Which is giving our guys more competition opportunities, better quality of life, for a student athlete, allows us to send guys like Gerard to the Midlands and guys like David and Hernandez up to the Michigan State Open. And it really starts to kind of expand, and then also hosting, that you do that all the time, but hosting events like the Preparator Open and the Mount Invite, allows us to bring in.
You have great facilities for events with that field house and the gyms, multiple gyms. So, wow, that's pretty amazing. I didn't know that about, the number 2 donor, I don't know, or number 2 funding program. That's pretty amazing. A wrestling program, is leading the way or, at the top that mount. That's awesome. When did you know you wanted to get into coaching? Was there a specific moment that sticks out?
So I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so I guess, coaching is just my way of doing that right now, teaching. And so I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And, where I got hooked into it was really, my time with Chris. That's really where I got hooked into it. And I realized that I could make an impact, and that this is an extension of my teaching in a way that I can help people. And then when I went to Firelands, it's complete different setting than Union Pines. I went from a program that had a bunch of support and participation at every level to, my first open mat, there wasn't a single kid that showed up, so
Wow.
like, so in going from, bottom of the league, that's kind of how I got into it. But it really wasn't until that time, with Chris and being down at Union Pines that it really clicked into, high gear, that this is really what I want to do. So.
Cool. At the college level, they change rules quite a bit each year. I think they've gotten closer to, where they want to be, but there will always be rule changes. What's one you would, change if you had the power to?
Oh yeah, there's a couple. I mean, some of our folk style rule set is just strange. Personally, for me, and I know obviously everybody's going to say I'm incredibly biased because I had a wrestler lose in the national finals this way, but the stall out rule, I think, is DQing somebody on stalls doesn't make sense when you have a mercy rule. So it's like, for me, I don't understand why you would, if that person can accumulate points to eventually, stop the match. For me, I think you should incentivize actual scoring,
Right.
and not just, like an objective, viewpoint. And some of those positions are so hard, for the athlete too, like a drop down stall, sometimes you're just in a tough position. So I think we created more stalling calls, and then we never expanded the chart. So then we, like, and at the D1 level, you're seeing guys like Austin DeSantos stalled somebody out from like App State in the first round of D1 Nationals. And I got into an argument with somebody about it being the rules. I said, yeah, absolutely, that's the rule, but that's ridiculous. That kid has worked his entire life to get to the national tournament. And that's the product that we're putting out there. When what fans want to see is, pins. They want to see takedowns. And if you want to get new fans that don't understand wrestling, just having a match just abruptly stop doesn't make sense, to them, aside from, like an illegal slam or, a bite or, it just doesn't make any sense. So I know there's obviously going to be some pushback on the stall diehards, but that for me just doesn't make any sense.
What would your recommendation be? A bigger point swing on the chart, or because if you have it, let's say you're up by a lot, with short time, or even going to the third period, you got a comfortable lead, like you said, that you want to see action. So if I'm the winning wrestler and I try to slow down that match significantly to win, what's your recommendation? It'd be a higher point chart, or
yeah, I mean, but at the same, no, yeah, I think you just keep expanding, the point chart, so, as the stalls increase in volume, you expand maybe the points, kind of walk up that chart. But at the same time, the guy that's winning the guy that scored the majority of the points should win, so, like I had a guy in the national finals who put up, who scored all the offensive points in the entire match. There wasn't a single offensive point that was scored by the other wrestler, and that guy was a national champ. So it's that to me, of course you're going to have people that are going to say, the gamesmanship to it. But in football, a team's not penalized for taking a knee, in different sports, basketball guys will play out the shot clock. I mean, it's I just don't understand our approach to it. I get generating action. I just don't think it's the right thing for our athletes. So
makes sense. No, I get where your view is. I'm not sure. I got to think more on that, but I'm not disagreeing with you. Abrupt end when we want to see action. Especially if we know those cases where you're 6-minute or 7-minute match, you're wrestling, your tail off for 4 minutes, and all of a sudden you're starting. It's like, come on,
right.
You wrestled for 4 minutes, and I didn't do anything, and now it's a shift.
Well, and also too, I don't want to speak like just take up the whole time with it, but one other scenario with it that drives me crazy is, and basically we coach our guys now that to win a match, you basically have to be up two. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're up one late in the match, now everybody's going to say, oh, just wrestle. What? Yeah, well, you are, but you also have to be tactically smart, so
Yeah, you don't want to, put
yeah,
yourself at
like
risk.
there's not too many, there's not too many positions you're going to put yourself in, just for the sake of like, like is a batter going to go into the batter's box and just swing at every pitch? Like,
Yeah.
no, like we shouldn't expect like a wrestler to operate the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So, my just kind of take on it is, like we're coaching our guys like, hey, if you're up one, you're tied.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like
They
just
have to now. Yeah.
with the rule set, you're tied.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just for me, I don't think that's where our sport should be.
Yeah. And it's tough with these rules changes, I guess we're talking at the high school and youth level, all these rule changes almost making harder on, coaches and definitely officials. The rules one way, that whole, I know this past year with the Ironman, below the knee, where you're at for a takedown. I know that was a huge issue. You're making it harder on coaches and officials with some of these rules because there's so much gray area or, so, we're already having a shortage of officials, and I get why we want to change rules, but sometimes we got to think of, what's the long-term impact of this? If, officials can't get it right, then it changes the match. And going back though, you were talking about football and the kneel down. And is there one unwritten rule in wrestling in your perspective?
Is there
Is one that you have, I guess not one, but do you have one that comes to mind, an unwritten rule of wrestling?
Oh man.
They talked about, what earlier this year with the 3-0 count swinging, in baseball, they're like, oh, is there anything that comes to mind?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's, I don't know. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I mean, do you have something?
No, I mean, there's, just the sportsmanship piece of it, you act like you've been there, but some people argue, we need more characters in the sport. There's both sides to it, but I didn't know if you had anything like that. Some people don't, like the takedown and kicking them out to score points. But, the whole sportsmanship thing. I guess you can act, like you've been there, but you can celebrate, but I guess not, degrade another person. But
right.
Do you have any setbacks that kind of propelled you or kind of made you see things in a different way that shaped you as a coach?
Oh yeah, a whole bunch. I mean, there's obviously, setbacks, every single year. Probably, one, the butt whooping that BW gave me my first year, when I was here at Mount, probably drove me to make us, try to work as hard. I don't want to say
right
in that a specific way, but really drove me to really compete as hard as I possibly could and kind of dump a lot of my time and resources into it. But I mean, there's been a whole bunch, I mean, as a competitor, losing, in the national quarterfinals, not being an AA, my junior year, and, my sophomore year, same thing, not being an A in my sophomore year, spending the majority of the year in, the top 8, top 10, so, lots of setbacks as a competitor, as a coach. One of the things I sent to you, is, what happened in 2018, 2019, so, dealing, with my school, really not, supporting, me specifically and, what we were trying to do with the program and the OAC, asking us to, vacate an OAC title. I mean, that was huge. It's only happened, one other time, so whenever I talk, with people, just, taking ownership, for it and just saying, hey, for the success that we had, absolutely, we've had a lot of it, but I'm still, cognizant of those setbacks and use those as fuel, moving forward and trying to, put myself in a position where I can never allow something like that to happen again, so just trying to get better and work through it. But there's lots of setbacks, just they happen all the time.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think new coaches need to hear that. It's not gonna be easy. You talked about the butt whooping from BW. It's there's always gonna be ups. There's always gonna be
Yeah.
downs, and you got to learn to adjust. And
Yeah.
you have a favorite social media follower?
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
one of your favorites?
Yeah. I love Tom, Ryan, Steve Garland, Jacob Casper, those are some of the guys that I really like to follow. And so occasionally, like, I'll go down to Ohio State, or text talk with Tom, and over, I've gotten really close to Jacob Casper, these past couple of years, and Steve Garland, talk with him every so often. He snagged a couple different high school guys, but yeah, those are some of the guys that I like to follow. I like their competitiveness, and I like their message, and I like their work habits,
Mm-hmm.
so those are some of the guys I like to follow.
Cool. I know you mentioned, off air, you like to read. Any books for like a new coach that those, wrestlers aren't usually the reading guys, but
Yeah.
for those that are, I know a lot that are, but any books you recommend for a new coach or even an experienced coach for a different perspective?
Yeah. Legacy. Legacy is, it's a book about the All Blacks. So, the rugby team, in New Zealand. And so they're notorious, I guess, for the haka, but they,
What's haka? This is all new to me.
So the haka, their pre-game dance that
Okay.
they do. So
Okay.
their pre-game tribal dance. In the book, they talk about how the haka, developed from a wartime, dance, and then they brought it into, their culture, their sports culture, and it's basically summoning, their ancestors, and summoning, kind of the tradition and history. But the book talks about every, just, I think, essential, core pillars. So one of the things that, we bring to our team is, sweeping the sheds, so never being, afraid to do the small things, taking care of your facilities and taking care of others. But they walk through just, the basic principles. And then also, they talk about, practice, so a lot of my philosophy on practice changed from, instead of like a 2-3 hour burner practice, about an hour and a half, try to increase our efficiency, make sure every single practice has a focus, that instead of, making them more technique based, you're making them more, using your practices like IQ, development, like in match IQ development. So using film, and using, actual real scenarios to dictate, what your practice plan is going to look like, so that, and then the final piece is player ownership, that, after a certain point in time, high level organizations and high level teams, your players have to cross over that threshold, and really take over the reins of certain aspects of the program. So, there's days where our guys run practice, and that doesn't mean that I'm not there. That doesn't mean that they're just lounging around the room, or, that doesn't mean that, it's a free for all, and these guys are, just being knuckleheads doing whatever. But we let them have a little control, of their training, when we gear up for, matches, and it's worked for us. So those are all things I've taken from the book, and it's legacy, and it highlights, it's a short read, but it's jam packed, with all sorts of science, and all sorts of different wisdom that, and I actually teach a class about it too.
Oh, really? Wow.
So we have my freshman introduction speaking and writing classes about it, but I tie it into like values and motivation, and I tie it into those aspects, and so it gives the kids a lot to write about. So they're not just writing about the book; they're writing about, their sport or their team, or or
they can relate to it and put in practice.
Right.
One other thing you talked about, you kind of you like the sports science aspect. Is there anything that you do differently as a coach, or you do with your program that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah. So with the help of our exercise science department, specifically Kelsey Scanlon, so she's one of the professors here. I went to school with her at Mount Union, so she's an alum as well. And one of the things that we started doing, in January, we really start to rein in our consider like our percentages. So we don't want our guys cutting more than 6%, of their weight. So we really want our guys to be able to practice and be within striking distance of their weight. We don't want guys cutting, 10 pounds, 11 pounds. We really want to kind of weed that out. So, as we gear up, for the postseason, we really, and when I implemented that, you probably thought there would have been a full scale mutiny on hands. I had everybody telling me, that they've done it their whole life and this, that, the other thing. But I really think it helps because once we start to minimize the effects of dehydration, and once we start to minimize the shock, and wrestlers are super adaptive. So, what I was told and what I was taught was that the majority of the time our guys don't even really know what's going on with them physiologically, because they're adapting, so they don't even they don't think anything's wrong, because they're just used to feeling like crap. So, we really tried to zero in on impacting that. And then we implemented like VO2 max testing and wind gate testing, and tried to zero in on certain conditioning segments, so figuring out what each guy individually needs. We catered food, so I mean,
Wow.
we catered food into the facility, and that's why I think our guys went on a tear in the postseason, because it allowed us to trim our practices down to about 50 minutes, come in, get in a good hard drill. We do like a 7-minute, to 10-minute little spar session, get their heart rate up, close out practice, and that was it. And by the time our guys are at, region and nationals, they were rolling. So, those are some of the things, I would love to expand, like with heart rate monitors. And actually I had somebody just reach out to me about like a VOR testing. And so I got to look more into that, he's a chiropractor in the area. And so we were, he was sharing, it's basically like speed development and different things like that. But yeah, I'm a junkie for that stuff. I'm a big believer in working hard, but I think it's really important to understand. And I wish I would have paid more attention to it as an athlete. I think it's important to understand how the body works.
And how it works optimally, right? Not
Yep.
just cutting that weight out. So do you do with the, the body fat, do you use the bod pod, the water displacement, or?
Yeah. So yeah, we have a bod pod on
Mm-hmm.
campus. So we've used that, we use the BMI, testing through with our trainers. So the bod pod is the most efficient form,
Right.
and most effective form of it. But yep, those are all things that we utilize, and we're fortunate to have the resources on campus. If we, like you asked me, like what piece of tech I would have be a heart rate monitor, where we could track these guys, through workouts and things like that. So we can see, how their body is doing, so we can generate rest time, and, we can really work at it. But,
that's definitely, the next, I know Coach Myers, down Columbus, he's big on the recovery, and you see these whoop straps and things like that. I think, we're just starting in that whole tech side of, sports, optimization through recovery, and, obviously heart rate and, body fat and the BMI, that all plays, hand in hand with rest. And so, yeah, no, please share whatever you're working on next, or whatever you have.
Yeah, I mean, when I get more information on this VOR, I don't know I don't know much about it right now. Again, this actually just kind of spawned up. But yeah, vestibular ocular reflex.
Oh,
So
wow.
trying to kind of, and I don't think that's specifically to cutting, weight. That's, the way that it was described to me, it's more, speed development and balance and things like that. But I mean, we have great strength coaches too. So I don't run our strength department. I lift with our guys, but I don't run it. We have strength coaches that run our guys,
Nice.
that do all of our injury prevention stuff. And like you said, with the recovery, I mean, there's times with our guys, I'm like, I don't want you doing anything today, just
Right.
go relax, or we'll use a pool for an active recovery.
Right.
Um, so, I mean, I'm a big fan, of that. And, I think also too, I mean, we're a mixed martial art. Like we need to use data and science, to drive development, and at the high school level too. Not that every coach has access to those same resources, but I mean, there's just so many kids that just stop the sport because there's just too much emphasis on, cutting, and not enough
Right.
emphasis on getting better at wrestling. So,
Right. That's a whole nother topic. That's
yep.
a whole nother topic. I don't want to get off on a tangent too much, but and I don't want to make this about me, but actually
No, go ahead.
small. So my wrestling origins actually go back to Mount Union.
Yeah.
My mom's brother wrestled, and he ended up actually wrestling at Mount Union. And
Okay.
then my mom's other brother was, my coach in high school and a state champ. So it's kind of small world. My family, back in the 70s, one of my
Yeah.
family
Well,
members, Brad
well,
Roth, his name is. I don't know if you have history books or
yeah.
anything
No,
there, but
I do.
that's
I can
that's
look
my
at.
uncle, Brad Roth. So shout out to Brad. He's always was a huge supporter of my wrestling and my family wrestling. He's up in Michigan now. So unfortunately, he's a Michigan fan, but we don't hold that against him. So.
Yeah. No, I
So,
thought.
anything else you want to talk about, or anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to discuss?
No, I mean, I'm good. I'm an open book. Anything you want to talk about with the program
Mhm.
or the school. I mean, one thing, that my assistant coach, Gavin Spielman and I,
Ah, awesome guy. Yeah, how'd
yeah.
you snag him up?
Well, him and I, we became really good friends, through Team Ohio, and, so that's where we made our introduction. And, so I've been very, very fortunate to, the first two years he was with me as a volunteer. He was finishing up school, and then I was able to get him over here, to get his master's, comped over. And so he's actually the first, like, GA that wrestling's ever had,
Oh
here.
wow.
So, our former coach Bill Schindel, he participated in the GA program, but as the head coach. So Gavin's the first ever GA, that we've ever had. But something that him and I are working on, we wanted to put together like an Ohio high school, like wrestling card. So very similar to what we're seeing with like Beat the Streets and,
Right.
like Fight Night and things like that. We were looking at putting together some matchups and just get some things going. And, because we're so limited on what we can do with our guys.
Mm-hmm.
So with all the COVID protocols and contact and things like that, we're just interested in doing something fun. So we've been talking with a couple different coaches, from Wadsworth, Louisville, trying to get their take on, if they would participate, and eventually we'll expand out to, some other, coaches and see what they're thinking. But, and then also, too, we're trying to, part of my job is to take care of, all my guys and my coaches. And, we're actually, in the process of trying to help, Gavin, he's looking at the Ashland position, that just opened up with Hutch, leaving. So I'm doing everything I can, right now to, at least get him an interview, and get him in the door. And I mean, he has a whole bunch on his own merit, but, I'm doing everything I can to,
Well, that speaks a lot about you.
yeah.
You know,
So I don't want to
you
lose him,
want him.
but
I'm sure you want to keep him as
yeah.
long as you can, but you kind of know his
Yep.
potential. So that's pretty cool that you're,
Yep.
supporting him. Where can people find you, on social media, or anything you have going on? What's
Yeah. So yeah, my Twitter, is just Malave JM, and that's, then my Instagram, I think, is J Malave, underscore, at UMU, but, so University of Mount Union. But, yeah, that's where, people can find me, on social media. I use Snapchat, but I don't I don't really like, I'm not a guy that's going to like video my whole life,
right?
on Snapchat and document all that stuff. So I put, mostly it's my kids or cooking or read whatever I'm reading, or something about our team. usually just like a still shot, photo.
Cool. Cool.
But yeah, that's what we got going on social media. So I'm not a real interesting follow anymore. I used to be more aggressive on social media.
Hey, no, it's all good. You're obviously doing things right there at Mount Union. But thanks for joining us today. Definitely some great conversations. Looking forward to seeing you this season, and following you guys, and having you back on. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.